What's up, dudes? Lady dudes, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I'm doing an interesting video here. It's a little different. I say that at every video, but I like trying to do different types of videos here. And today I'm looking at all the archetypes that could and will almost assuredly be developed in the TCG as their own archetypes at some point in the future. I think this is really interesting. We're getting the Marine Cess stuff in Rising Rampage in the next 2 months. I think we're out. No, I guess like a month and a half now for Rising Rampage. But when we get that, it's pretty hype. It definitely buffs a couple water decks, but it's a cool archetype. But that's not exactly what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about here is Link Vrains, the newest form of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, and all the decks that are like very prevalent in that show. And as we've seen, decks that are prevalent in the show almost always get adapted into the TCG in some way, shape, or form. So I'm talking about the 7 decks that I believe, and I went through pretty much the entire list of almost every character and the relevant decks in the show, and these are the 7 that I believe we don't have that I think we almost assuredly will get, except for one I'm iffy on, but the rest should be almost assured. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So first we'll start with Archetypes Legio, and before I talk about this archetype, I will say I'm not going super in depth about any of these, just because like there's 7 to cover here. If I went too in depth, that's a whole other series. That's all I'm saying. If you want me to do a series like that, I'm totally down. I think these are really interesting to read about and talk about how they could be adapted into the TCG, what stuff they would need to change, how some of the stuff would work, if it would be good or not, all that stuff. But that's a whole other series. Like I said, for now, we're just doing a quick overview of all of them and just getting like, wow, that'd be cool. Wow, that'd be cool too. Wow, that'd be cool too. That kind of thing. So we're starting with Archetypes Legio. This is a light-based archetype. A lot of the archetypes are Cyber's type, just because it's the Vrains anime. So I know like you might want to see some different stuff, but a lot of them are Cyber's, but they're still cool. So we have Archetypes Legio. This is a really, really cool designed light-based Cyber's archetype, where the monsters look like essentially gladiators or warriors, whatever you want to call them. Gladiators, warriors, knights, that kind of thing. And they look awesome. And the way they kind of work, I guess, is based on the way you set them up with their link monsters. They form like battle formation sort of, and the way they're positioned will change the way their effects work, I guess, and will make them, I guess, more offensive, more defensive, all that kind of stuff, which is really, really cool. I think that's a really cool idea, and I think it's a great way to utilize links, especially with the lore of your deck. Like, it's a battle legion, so you form different battle formations and duel that way, which is really, really cool. I'm not sure how that would be integrated into the TCG, but really, really cool. I like this one a lot. Next we have G Golem. So this is a earth-based archetype that has a couple of, or it just has one, I guess, one water link monster, but that's kind of like it waters the earth and allows the earth to grow type thing. It supports the other earth monsters essentially. But they're really cool as well. I like a good amount of their cards. They have a card called Pebble Dog, which is awesome. He's normal summon, he searches a copy of himself, and when he's sent from hand to graveyard, he also searches another copy of himself, which I just think is a cool little, just kind of like a Thunder Dragon-esque card. So he's cool a lot. I like him. He's really cute. Essentially, it's an earth deck, so it's going to be more defensive than most decks are, I believe, and it's cool. I mean, again, it's a Cyber's deck, even though it is Earth attribute. So, you know, consider that there. But it's a lot of like Earth stuff. Like if Cyber's didn't exist, it'd be like a rock archetype, which is pretty cool. They have this really cool link that's water, and it can like revive an Earth link monster from grave, so that it's co-linked with it. And then it places like G counters. Depending on how many G counters it has, it buffs the Earth monsters, and then allows itself to attack multiple times. Or the monsters co-linked to it attack multiple times in the same battle phase, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I just think it's a cool archetype. I've always been a sucker for the Earth archetypes here. Never been able to like, I don't know, I've just always had a favoring for him. This guy looks cool too. The artwork's a little blurry, but really cool as well. So next we'll move on to the Storm Riders, which is a wind archetype with, I guess, like some bird machines. I know that kind of sounds like Raid Raptors, and honestly, it kind of is like Raid Raptors. If it sounds like your kind of thing, it is. It just is. They have like some monsters with like some really long effects. They look weird. It's kind of hard to explain them. They look kind of mechanical, but also kind of bird-like as well. They have like weird removal effects. They have weird like buff effects where they just buff each other, buff like themselves and each other. And they also have effects where they can like special summon out onto the field fairly easily depending on the board state. Which is kind of interesting. And then, so I guess you try and like whittle your opponent down, and then you go into your link monsters, and then you go to town. I don't know. This is the one I probably the least amount vibe with. Just doesn't really seem for me. They do have 2 different field spells, which is pretty cool. That's always something that can be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a bird, another wind bird archetype. Nothing crazy, but it is Cybers again. Next up, a really interesting one we have is at Ignister. Now, this is used, I believe, by the main character, or at least the AI that ends up teaming up with the main character at some point. And this is a weird one. So technically, he's supposed to be like the dark Ignis, but he doesn't. This deck isn't necessarily dark. It's actually like a lot. It can be like everything. So you have 3 different right now, at least, attribute monsters. One for the main deck and one for the extra deck, respectively, for each one. So you have a dark, a light, and a wind main deck monster, and you have a dark, a light, and a wind extra deck monster to correspond with it. Something else that's really, really cool with this deck is that I believe Dark Templar is a Link, Light Dragon is an XZs, and Wind Pegasus, I believe, is a Synchro. So I love decks that can utilize different types of extra deck monsters, and if they can integrate it super smoothly, that's even better. I mean, obviously, it can be weird for Konami to try and figure out how these can all be consistently utilized in a deck like this, and not favor one over the other, but keep them all like, oh, there's like a lot of situations where this come up, or this one, and they're all like readily available. It can be tough, but hopefully they do a good job, and hopefully at some point we get like the fire, water, and earth monsters, main and extract monsters to correspond here, or hopefully they do exist, period, or if not, just get more main deck stuff. They definitely need more main deck stuff to really round out the archetype, to really make it its own, because right now it's just like a weird little engine, but they do have some interesting cards already. I think they're cool. They do have some cool removal effects and stuff that I dig. So yeah, Ignis. Who doesn't want to play a main character archetype? Dark Magician players. Next up, we're going to look at Sun Avalon and also Sun Vine. These are kind of combined, I guess, mini archetypes. They're kind of the same thing. They all work together. They literally list each other's like names and their effects. So you have the Sun Avalon monsters, or the Sun Avalon portion of the deck, which is mostly, I guess, like trees. It's mostly the trees themselves is the Sun Avalons, and then the Sun Vine cards are mostly the sprites or pixies, whatever you want to call them, the forest elves, whatever these are, that like I guess help protect and just work with the trees. You fight in their forest, they get buffed. That kind of situation. So without the trees up, it doesn't make the Sun Vines as good, which is pretty cool. I like that they depend on each other. I think that's really cool. It can definitely make the deck a little more fragile, but I just want the deck more than not having the deck, period. So even if it's not great, it'd still be fun to use. I think it's really cool. I've always gravitated towards the earth / like plant decks. There's something about them that's really cool. I love the designs of like the forest elves, or whatever you call these guys. Sunvine Thrasher here looks amazing. I think it looks dope as hell. But yeah, I really like these. I really like the idea of these, and they all like buff each other and protect each other, that kind of stuff. So really, really cool there. That's the one I probably vibe with the most. Them, like Armatos Legio, and probably like the G Golem. Those are probably like my three like top ones here. Next up, we'll move to Drone, the drone archetype used by Blood Shepherd in the anime. He's kind of like almost like a bounty hunter walking around trying to just eliminate people. He uses these drones, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's literally just like these flying ships that are used to, I guess, like take people down swiftly and without hesitation. So I guess that's also the way he duels. But the one thing I will say here is this is the one that I think it has the least chance of being integrated, although I do think there's a decent chance it will, just less than the others. So it's weird. Like drones just seems like a weird archetype, right? Like we have all these machine archetypes that are like interesting. Mecha Phantom Beasts, they're like animals mixed with machines. We have like the Roids, those are like goofy kind of construction robots with faces and stuff. And then like cyber dragons, like it's a dragons combined with machines. And then you just have drones. They're just regular drones. Which is kind of weird. It just seems a little plain to me as far as like machine archetypes go, and for that reason, I think it could be weird for them to integrate it. They may just think it's not interesting enough to actually make it an actual TCG archetype, but we'll see. But it's pretty cool. I hear that it's a pretty quick, like you try to like quickly like inflict your opponent a lot of damage on your opponent. Although this is all, they also play at 4,000 life points, I believe, in the anime, so maybe it wouldn't be quite as quick in the TCG, and if they integrated it, it'd be less of a like OTK or burn deck and more of like just a legitimate deck that does normal deck things. But we'll see. A lot of these decks deal with tokens, by the way, or at least in the anime they do, but I think that's just for easy link plays, and I don't think we would get a ton of crazy link or token cards in the TCG if they were to be integrated. But this one's pretty cool. They're all pretty cool, honestly, but this one definitely is like kind of a little more plain than the others. Doesn't have any oomph. Like all of them have their own thing, but then he's just like, oh, they're just regular ships, regular machine ships. Whatever. And the last one we have here is Hydra Drive. So this is used by Bowman, that's right. Bowman and Haru in Link Vrains. They're pretty cool. They're another Cyberse archetype, but they do not have a specific type or attribute they are locked into like a lot of the other ones are. Instead, they make use of having the different attributes, and I'll tell you why. So they have a lot of Link monsters, right? They have a ton of Link monsters. So they have a Link 1 for every single regular attribute, not light and dark, but like earth, water. So I guess like the elemental attributes. And essentially all these say is that if your opponent controls a monster corresponding to its attribute, it can bypass it and attack your opponent directly. And also they have, I think, some other Link monsters that say if your opponent has a monster with the corresponding attribute as itself, its effects negated. Almost just like a floodgate, almost like a walking skill drain for any monster with the same attribute, which is really, really interesting. Obviously, against light and dark decks, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage taking those decks on, but at least all the decks that primarily utilize the main 4 elemental archetype or attributes, you can just completely floodgate them out with your monsters built into your engine, which is so cool to me. I think that's such a cool idea. It would make your extra deck space super tight, so you might not have a ton of room for like utility extra deck monsters, but you'd have to just kind of make good on I don't know, floodgating your opponent out of the game, which is pretty crazy. They have a lot of Link monsters for this archetype, so I think that would be kind of crazy to see how that goes. But I think this one is really interesting. I love archetypes that just have a super interesting way of just playing in general, and I think this is really, really cool. A really cool way to go about Link monsters. So that's pretty much it. These are the 7 archetypes here. Like I said before, the 3 I vibe with the most: Armatos Legio, G Golem, and the Sun Avalon / Sunvine archetype. Let me know, guys, which one of these you would want imported the quickest. You're like, whoa, now that I see this, I literally cannot wait for Konami to actually put this out in our game so I can play with them. And also, let me know if I missed anything. I mean, I looked up a list of literally every single like relevant deck in the show. If I missed anything, they are at over 100 episodes now, so definitely could have missed something there. Let me know if I did, so that I can bring it up in a future video, hopefully. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't want this video to get too long, like a lot of my videos do when I get all rambly. But thank you so much for watching, guys. If you want to see more stuff from me, go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more of that, of this, all that. And thank you. Peace.